Are you new to Reiki? Did you just finish up your level 1 training? Or perhaps you're revisiting all of the trainings and looking at your practice with a new lens or with a new focus is to take it slowly. There's never any rush in life. There's never any rush with anything that we're doing. And I think in many ways, maybe I'm just biased, but I think in many ways, Reiki is a perfect example of why we don't take things slowly in life. Because when we learn something new, especially something that can be as grandiose as Reiki, as experiential as Reiki, as promising as Reiki in many ways, especially if you're learning kind of the Western approach to Reiki, all of those things can be things that we want to have happen to us right away. We want to rush it. It's exciting, right? We want to jump into the experience. You know, quite often Reiki is taught about from the aspect of the experience. So for instance, if you have just done your Reiki training, you know, your teacher, especially if it's a Western lineage or Western approach, your teacher very well may have been using terms like downloading, opening, channeling, intensifying, saying that they can, you know, communicate with the energy of the universe. They can do all of these magical things. And now you also can do those things. That's amazing. And that is part of the practice in many ways, but just slow down with that. Take your time, right? You know, if we think about what Reiki is, or at least in the way that it's quite often taught, we are hearing about it as a healing modality, right? So think about it like this. You are whatever age you are, and you have lived all the way up until this point, right? So for me, you know, I'm in my early 40s. And it would be like me learning Reiki right now, like learning level 1 right now, and wanting to dive in and work on everything in my life that has accumulated over 40 years. And quite often, Reiki is taught or promised or presented in a way that the level 1 student can do that. You can work on everything at once after you've taken this course, which has most likely just been a couple hours of training, right? Now, it is very possible to work on all those things at once. And indeed, as your practice grows and gets deeper, you probably, hopefully anyways, will understand how that works. But for right now, just take things slowly, right? And remember the precept of doing our work honestly. This is part of doing our work honestly. See, if we take our work slowly, and if we approach it without want or outcome, without need of the spectacle, without desire, without a lot of the hyperbolic language that can be used when Reiki is discussed or when it's taught, if we put all of that stuff on the side, then that indeed is the only way that we can practice honestly, right? It's the only way that we can be fully present for our practice. And to be fully present means to take things slow. It's the same with everything else in life, right? I mean, if you want to be fully present for a meal that you've been preparing or that you've been looking forward to or whatever, you don't just plow away at it and finish it in a couple of bites. You savor it. And I think that's another really beautiful way to look at Shodan or level 1 in our Reiki journey, is to savor that journey. Savor your internal voyage. Savor the journey into the self, right? Not from the perspective of your experience, but just from the perspective of the journey itself. The journey is the journey. That's it. There's no need for things to be layered on top of that. Just be present for the journey and take it step by step. See, if we do that, if we are arriving to the practice with this mindset, then the healing that you will understand and you'll witness and you'll experience as part of your journey with Reiki will be that much more tangible to you and that much more visceral, that much more understandable, right? It will be free from the entrapments of, and the delusions of our mind and our ego, many of which, again, were probably taught. Like that language is usually how Reiki is taught. Now, maybe for the beginning student, that's something that we need. We might need to hear the experience or the language of experience. But that's not how it's taught at its roots, right? We don't talk about these grandiose experiences within an Eastern perspective of Reiki. And indeed, Reiki is an Eastern practice, right? You see, that language doesn't exist simply because in that language, we are demanding or rushing results, right? There's a video here on my channel, which again, if you're new to Reiki, I would really suggest that you go and watch this one. It's on Reiki being a learner's journey. And in that video, I'm talking specifically about this point, right? Anytime in life that we learn anything, we start it with a beginner's mindset. That's the mindset where we think we've got it all figured out. So our perceived or believed knowledge is very, very high, but our actual knowledge is very, very low, right? This is like the idea or the mindset of a child, right? And this is not a defamatory statement. This is literally how we learn everything. We start with that level of excitement in the practice, or that excitement of this newness of the practice. And after a while, we begin to learn, as that excitement falls away, that we have so much more to learn, right? So this is where a lot of people fall off with their practice. Once the shininess of it wears off, once all of the things that your teacher promised you will happen, you know, your visions and your channeling and your heat and your power and blah, 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 all of these big statements, once those don't live up to the kind of expectations of what you thought from your teacher, or the newness of it wears off, or whatever it might be, that's when a lot of people just let go of the practice. They want something shiny and new again, right? All of that can be circumvented if we, right now, take our practice slowly. So what does that mean? That means that when you turn into your practice, your daily self-work, right? That means that you are hopefully taking that slowly. You're not rushing things. You're not counting down the time, for instance, on each one of the hand placements. You're simply being present for yourself. You're turning up fully and authentically just for you. Not for your teacher, not for what you've learned, not for what it says in the manual, but simply for you, right? After all, Reiki is your journey, and the healing that you're doing on this journey is uniquely yours. It's not mine, it's not Usui Sensei's, it's not your teacher's, it's not your lineage, it's none of those things, right? So if we turn up to that practice with slowness, with a lack of want or outcome, with a lack of desire for anything to happen at all, except for an opportunity to be fully present with the self, that's when we start to really do our work honestly, right? And the beautiful thing about that is the reward is so incredible, because the reward is time for just you. It's time for you to be present with just yourself, right? In our crazy busy life full of endless distractions and social media and everything else that we have to occupy every single minute of our day, how beautiful and unique and rare is it that you have an opportunity to just be with yourself, your unique self, your full self, right? And that full self demands slowness. It demands awareness, and it demands peace of practice, right? Bring the wonder back that we had as kids when we were fully involved in what it is we were doing, right? When we were not worrying about all the other things that could be potentially happening. We were just focusing on what we were doing, being present in the here and now. Like Eckhart Tolle talks about, and like so many other, books and famous speakers in the wellness space, this idea of being present is the kind of arch of all of our practices. Maybe you've just learned Reiki for the first time, right? Maybe you've just got your level 1 done. That's fantastic. Congratulations. It's a beautiful journey. Be present for that journey, though, right? Be present for it without the hyperbolic speech and expectations of outcome that we can so often hear in the practice. The most beautiful thing that you can gain from this practice is stillness inside of yourself, right? And that world of stillness inside the self, even if right now you think it's not approachable or it's not even possible, you've never felt it before or whatever, that stillness is where the entire infinity of the universe, the entire infinite nature of all things, where the meaning of Reiki, where the true story of yourself really resides. That's how beautiful that is, right? But in order to get there, in order to feel it, we have to take things slowly. You know, for this idea of taking things slowly as well, the great example of why we don't do this in life is, you know, after January 1st, when so many people make kind of New Year's commitments to getting back in shape. Well, gym memberships and fitness enthusiasm and everything spikes for that month, and then it falls off because we're not committing to anything, because we're not actually ready to go into that space perhaps, or we're not ready to put in the effort into the practice. But I think that that's a superficial way to look at it. I think the reason why things drop off so quickly is because we have a society of immediacy. We have a society that demands things to happen right here, right now, or I'm not interested in it, right? The journey into yourself has no time for a mindset like that. If that's the way that things are approached, then there's no stillness and there's no slowness to the practice. And if that's the case, then we can never be present for the practice. So wherever you are on your journey, if it's level 1 or maybe you're redoing all your levels, turn into the stillness of yourself and the slowness of the practice, right? Maybe be guided or inspired by Usui Sensei's 21 days of austerity on Mount Kurama, where he literally did just that. 21 days of turning into the self, and that's it, in quiet, slow, introspective contemplation. Make that the focus of your practice wherever you are on your journey with Reiki, and your practice will become that much more meaningful, that much more beautiful, and that much more healing, because it will become that much more peaceful. So I hope that gives everybody motivation. If you're new to Reiki, like I've been saying in this video, congratulations, such a beautiful journey. And please check out my channel for so many other videos on the practice of Reiki. All of the content on my channel is here to help each and every one of you on your journey, and I do hope you find them beneficial. As always, I'm very grateful for the support of the channel as well. If you have any questions on this video, please leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. And thank you so much for subscribing to the channel so that you can be notified of upcoming videos. Be well in your practice, everybody, and as always, In Gassho to all.